Who says knock you out? The Raptors drop 134 on the Hawks. It was an all-around effort. Let's go to the film room.
The only thing that's originally filmed is that and I've studied older films and tried to figure out how I got that impression. I was getting meetings right in the cutting room.
The unique thing about film is an art form
exactly.
is the editing.
RJ Barrett has been one of the best play finishers on the Toronto Raptors. That is why he facilitates offense in some of the best ways possible, because RJ just knows how to take advantage of the advantages other guys create for him. It's what makes him such an elite player. It's what allowed him to score 29 points tonight. So as Mamu rolls to the basket here and Onyeka Okongwu completely sags off his defender, his offensive player, which is RJ Barrett. Barrett, who's shooting about 37% from three this season, capitalizes. He knocked down 4 threes tonight. When he's shooting in rhythm, that's how he gets to those high-scoring numbers. But he's also a great creator when working in pick and rolls, especially when he's going to this left hand of his curling to the basket. And so as we've talked about, Scottie Barnes as a screener has been really helpful for the Raptors offense as of late. They use him as a screener in actions because of how much of a threat he is as a roller, especially as a decision maker in the short roll area of the floor. And so as we see here, Scottie slips. That forces Jalen Johnson to immediately stick on Scottie. And now RJ Barrett has an advantage on Beat Krejci to go all the way downhill and finish at the basket. That's an easy one for RJ. Another screen assist here for Scottie Barnes, but there's also an exit screen that's going to happen for Emmanuel Quickly. Basic Spain pick and roll action here where Scottie is going to screen RJ's guy and Quick is going to screen Jalen Johnson, but he's really going to ghost this screen and pop out here to the three-point land. Creates a lot of opportunities for RJ to be a decision maker with the ball, but then also for the defense to be forced to make a lot of decisions. So as we see here, Quick pops out, RJ drives all the way to the basket and finishes. But if we look back here, right, Mo Gay is also trying to pinch in here. So if RJ really wanted to, he could wrap this pass around to BI, get the defense in rotation, swing back to IQ, or he can dump off this pass to Scottie. There's just so many options here for RJ as he goes towards that left hand. The Raptors devise it specifically like that. I love how willing of a cutter RJ is off of the ball. He just gets things going for the Raptors offense when nothing is there. And so Scottie Barnes in a delay action here for the Raptors, operating as the 5-man to create, right? In some situations, usually Emmanuel Quickly might set a pin down and RJ will roll off that pin down and run a dribble handoff with Scottie. That's probably the number one play, but there's also like split action stuff that they can do where RJ will screen for Quick and Quick will screen for RJ and they can kind of cut off of each other. There's a lot of different things that they can do when they have Scottie in this area of the floor, but it's because Scottie is an elite decision maker. So he's just able to make this read, find RJ cutting to the basket, and he finishes. RJ also does a really good job of putting his hand out so that he knows what his target is. Scottie knows what his target is. It makes it easier to get that pass off. And RJ obviously does a great job of filling lanes in transition too. So Scottie pushing it up the floor. RJ is going to beat his defender and Jalen Johnson, also fill a lane. Filling a lane means just like there's certain spots you have to go to in transition. One of them is here. One of them is the ball handler here. IQ is the de facto trailer in this play. You're just filling a lane. And so RJ here does a good job of filling this lane. And a nice hit-ahead pass by Scottie Barnes. RJ always capitalizes on his opportunities in transition. And so, folks, it was a masterful game for RJ Barrett, who finished with 29 points. It was his best game of the year, season high, 29 points. As we welcome you inside the film room, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all the things you guys usually do. Appreciate you, as always, for tapping into Raptors Republic. This was an offensive, I don't even know, circus, if you want to call it. It was just constant offense back and forth between these two teams. And at one point in the fourth quarter, the Raptors decided to play defense, and they put this game away. To start the fourth quarter, it was a 16-0 run A 16-0 run from the Toronto Raptors. They did not allow the Hawks to score for the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. And folks, that was enough to put this away. The Raptors win 133, I believe, 134 to 117. And like I said, RJ Barrett with 29 points on 19 shots. He knocked down 4 threes as well. He does an incredible job of facilitating offense in multiple ways. As I detailed for you guys just now, his ability to fill lanes in transition, be a cutter, be a guy who can just be a secondary ball handler for the Raptors, does a great job of facilitating offense. Another guy who facilitates offense for the Toronto Raptors was Sandro Mamu, and he's done that very religiously over the last season. He's just so consistent in what he does for the Raptors. He had a tough game against the Denver Nuggets, and he spoke about this post game about, the kind of like mentality. He kind of beats himself up a little bit when he has these bad games. Darko talked about how one of his most selfless qualities is the fact that he's such a great human being, but also that can end up being his weakness because he beats himself up when he has bad games. It's something that he's working on and trying to control, and ultimately, that's on him as a player to kind of harness and figure out. I think all of us deal with a little bit of that, anxiety, if you will, insecurity about whether you're good enough or not. But it's great that Mamu is getting this opportunity, and boy, has he capitalized on this opportunity. I think he's been one of the most impactful bench players in the NBA, and on nights like tonight, you see it, right? 13 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. It's a career-high 8 assists for him. He was 2 assists away from a triple-double. He also had 3 blocks. I love the way that he dishes and dimes for the Toronto Raptors. He just is, once again, much like RJ Barrett, a facilitator of offense. And that's why bringing back RJ kind of changes the pecking order for the Toronto Raptors, right? Things fall in place a little bit more because of RJ's, you're guaranteeing basically 20 points a night from RJ Barrett. So now other guys can slot into their roles a little bit more comfortably. Mamu coming off the bench tonight, CMB getting the start, allowed Mamu to really be this facilitator of offense. The Raptors struggled out the gate. As soon as Mamu came into the game, he flipped the script for them. He was a team high plus 27. Let's break down some of these Mamu assists, shall we? All right, so he is a true triple threat. So the Raptors run a pick and roll between Colin Murray-Boyles and Jamal Shed. Asa Newell, who is guarding Mamu right now, is going to have to dig in here on this roll and tag the roller. And so as we see here, Asa Newell tags him, but that creates an opportunity for Mamu above the break. And now Asa Newell is at Mamu's, mercy, if you will, because he has so many options at his disposal. The number one option is the fact that he can shoot this ball. So he can shoot. That was a terrible squiggle. He can shoot this ball. He's kind of been inconsistent above the break, but for the most part, this is a guy who is known as a three-point threat, so he's going to get the respect of the defense when it comes to closeouts. And he can use this closeout to make multiple decisions. One, he can attack the basket, get all the way downhill, or two, he can maybe provide a nice dump-off pass to CMB by initiating the help in Vit Krejci. A lot of options for Mamu here because he is a true triple threat player. And so as we see here, pump, drive, nice dish to CMB for the finish. Again, he had 12 rebounds tonight, so grabbing it and pushing in transition. And I want to highlight this play. Honestly, it's less about Mamu and more about Brandon Ingram on this one. Brandon Ingram had 29 points tonight. He also had a few moments where it was the most explosive that I have seen him all season. Good job with the crossover, gets downhill, and dunks this ball. Genuinely, that's the most he's looked like Brandon Ingram all year with that explosiveness. And, of course, one of the things that Mamu is so good at, I love the pick and roll between him and Jamal Shed just because of the combination of speed and, again, the triple threat ability of Mamu. And so Mamu, in this short roll area, he can make a bunch of plays, but he also forces the defense in Moguet to pinch in and help here, recognizing that he's going to make this pass to Brandon Ingram, who will get a wide open three and knock it down. BI also was really good at knocking down his threes tonight. And so those are assists from Sandro Mamu. He had 8 tonight. He was exceptional. He was very, very good. Look, this was a really great offensive game for all parties. Brandon Ingram had 29 points. He did it on 15 shots, wildly efficient. He carved up Dyson Daniels and Zachary Risache in the mid-range area. At one point, 10 of his points were in the long mid-range area, a lot of them on tough shot making. And when he's going, boy, is he going. You know, like he just gets into that mode, into that rhythm, and there wasn't a single player on the Atlanta Hawks that could stop him. So BI had 29 points. We already talked about RJ Barrett and his ability to facilitate offense as a finisher, how he got to his 29 points. Scotty Barnes ended with 20 points on 14 shots, had 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 5 stocks. Mamu, as I mentioned, had a really great game. So offensively, it was all around for this Toronto Raptors team as they were able to contribute and get this win. They've been able to do well against the Hawks pretty much all season at different moments of the season too. They obviously started the year against the Hawks and destroyed them. Everybody thought, okay, if this is the version they're getting, Eastern Conference Finals, here we come. And then after their really strugglesome defensive stretch after that, when they replayed them midway through November, it was a NBA Cup game, and they handled business there as well. Much like that game, this was a bit of a slugfest in the sense that Brandon Ingram kept them within striking distance for the most part. His scoring was the reason they were able to kind of match what the Hawks were doing. Nickeil Alexander-Walker had a great game in this one. I believe he had like 30 points. Jalen Johnson was really good in this game as well. They combined for 61 points. So obviously the defense wasn't the greatest for the Toronto Raptors tonight. But the defense wasn't available for either team. Like, my God, I was watching that game, and it just was so clear to me that none of these teams were really interested. And whichever team was going to play defense first was going to win this game. It turned out to be the Toronto Raptors to start the fourth quarter, where they started out 16-0. It was really impressive. And it was a lineup that included Grady Dick, Mamu, RJ Barrett, guys who aren't necessarily known for their defensive repertoire. So it's very cool that those guys were part of the winning defensive lineup for the Toronto Raptors. That's a good win. They've handled this Hawks matchup pretty handedly. I know one of the kind of talking points post-game will be about Scotty Barnes talking to Trae Young at halftime, dapping him up. Looked like they were having a bit of a conversation. From my read on things, it seems like these are the end of times for Trae Young in Atlanta. It seems like they are ready for an amicable, if not, just like it's time, folks, for him to move on to a different team. Is that team going to be the Toronto Raptors? I'm not necessarily sure. I feel like it's gotten to the point where his value is so low that if you're in a Brandon Ingram type of situation where you essentially get him for free, all respect to Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk and that first round pick that is back with the Indiana Pacers. The Raptors got Brandon Ingram at a massive discount. And so can you get Trae Young at a massive discount? I'm not necessarily sure. Look, I'm actually working on a video about Trae Young for The Athletic and why it's time for them to move on. It's very clear to me that he is struggling immensely on the defensive end. And so you have to ask yourself, if you are trading for Trae Young, do you have the infrastructure to insulate what he does not provide defensively? Does a backcourt of Trae Young and RJ Barrett work for you? And if it's not Trae Young and RJ Barrett, does a backcourt of Trae Young and Emmanuel Quickley work for you? God, none of those really make sense to me defensively. And so what's the trade? If that's not the trade, what is the trade for the Toronto Raptors? And of course, there's the Jakob Poeltl part of this equation and how that all fits together. So it's a lot of moving parts for the Raptors if they wanted to trade for Trae Young. Out of all of the combinations, I feel like he's probably the most cost-effective guy to trade for. But is that the guy you want to go and get? You know, there's obviously the Anthony Davises of the world. There's the LaMelo Balls of the world. You could also not trade and just stick with your guns here. But out of the players that are being mentioned, I'm not necessarily sure if I'm interested in Trae Young. I think they absolutely need to upgrade at guard for what it's worth. And depending on the price, if it really is a discount, maybe Trae Young does make sense for this team. But I have no idea what his value is and what the Hawks would want. And if the value is so low they have an extra year where they can kind of like kick the tires and see if somebody else will be able to pick up his option. Trae is playing some really bad basketball right now, and so his value's low. His contract situation isn't great. You got to pay him. A lot of questions for Trae Young. So unless you can answer those questions, then it's kind of hard to see why the Raptors would trade for him. Nonetheless, the Raptors have another game against the Atlanta Hawks. Their final game against the Hawks. It feels like they've played them a lot. This is the final game that they'll play them. And they have a chance to close this out. I'm always interested about these like mini playoff series types of games where, you know, you play the same team twice. The Raptors actually do that twice this month. They play the Sixers twice at home in a couple of weeks. I'm very interested to see how that goes because the Sixers are playing some really good basketball. Joel Embiid is looking healthier than ever. Paul George is back in the lineup. VJ Edgecombe looks awesome, and Tyrese Maxey looks like he's going to end up on an MVP ballot. So that's a really good team. And the Raptors have beat that team. The Raptors have lost to that team in a pretty close game. I actually think that's a very interesting matchup for the Raptors, but it's one that they will need Jakob Poeltl for. And I don't know what the situation is with that. We will likely get an update soon. Actually, we did get a minor update today that he is doing drills, and he's doing them with contact. So that's a good sign. How that progresses over the next, about a week, we'll see how that goes because the Raptors haven't been running Mo Bamba. They've been playing a lot smaller, and that, I will say, that helps with this Hawks team because the Hawks also play small. Onyeka Okongwu is not the biggest big man in the world. They like to run sometimes with Jalen Johnson at the 5, similar to what the Raptors do with Scotty Barnes. So the fact that the Hawks are also missing their big man with Kristaps Porzingis, we'll see if Porzingis plays on Monday. That's kind of an interesting storyline here, how that changes the dynamic for this Raptors team and for this Hawks team. But overall, this is kind of a favorable matchup for the Toronto Raptors in the sense that they have the offensive firepower to match up with the Hawks, and I think they have a little bit more defensive talent overall to be able to punch above their weight. They're also a deeper team, so when their bench shows up, like it did tonight, they're able to kind of put them to bed. After the Hawks, you've got the Hornets and Celtics, two teams that I think the Raptors struggle immensely with, right? And so you have the Hornets, the Celtics, and then 2 Sixers games. That's an interesting stretch of hoops. That right there, that 5-game stretch is really interesting. Keep an eye out for the next week or so, because I don't think the Raptors are going to be making a trade anytime soon to, kind of change things up for them. But I think they're rolling with this team, and I'm really curious to see how they match up against the Hornets, who have been a thorn in their side, the Celtics, who are playing really good basketball, and of course the Sixers that we just talked about. So an interesting stretch of hoops coming up for the Toronto Raptors. We'll see what happens, folks. This team is constantly going through these waves, December was tough. They finished out December strong, and now they're starting January, and we'll see how January unfolds for them. Thank you very much for tapping into Raptors Republic. We appreciate you guys as always. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you on Monday for another Hawks game. Peace.